Hello and welcome to another episode of the podcast for the recently deceased. I'm Nate Roberts.
I am Rodney Godek. How you doing, brother?
Oh, I'm all right, pretty good. Long week, tired, working all the time. Love making time to watch horror movies though, and
Yeah, it's been an embarrassment of riches this year, and the season has definitely not been disappointing. Still, lots to talk about.
oh yeah, definitely just one banger after another. For the most part, I think tonight was a bit of a stinker.
Yeah, we'll get into it. I think, but in general, reflecting about 2022, because we weren't doing this as aggressively last year, I wonder if we would have felt the same way. I think that pandemic shifted things a little bit, and now theaters are more of a thing. It's like, so I feel like it's a combination of the pandemic and now there's a rebirth of that in the theater experience. But it's also maybe companies are releasing more. This year feels more special than the past several years. And I
Oh
know the
sure.
pandemic obviously impacted that, but I think even before then, it's sort of like a resurgence of the genre, and it just feels more heavy with the content that's coming out. That's different than the past couple handful of years. So I'm excited. I hope that we continue it. Clearly, it's winning in the box office.
Yeah, yeah.
With horror.
The genre, yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, it's the only like growth genre making more money than everything else,
Hmm.
except for like Marvel and Star Wars. So, and
Yeah,
I would assume a Disney feature. So basically, Disney beats horror, horror beats everything else. Um,
yeah. Which is a good segue because you mentioned Disney. Hulu is owned by Disney, and Hulu is presenting our feature that we're discussing tonight.
that is correct. Tonight we'll be discussing Hellraiser 2022, the remake, reboot, whatever you like to call it. Um, yeah, some people have already joked that Pinhead is now a Disney princess. Although,
Yes.
although I don't know if Pinhead is a princess of hell. Uh, like that doesn't make sense. I think the Cenobites are from their own dimension. It just happens to be called Hellraiser.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's hell. I don't think is even valid. There's no religious iconography in Hellraiser. Well, maybe okay. Me, I don't know Hellraiser. Hellraiser was not a formidable series or
Right, right.
IP as I was growing up. I never watched any of them until a little while ago when I knew we were going to be doing this. So I watched the first two, and then obviously I've heard all of the other sequels, and every other iteration was just continued to degrade in quality. And so, but from what I know, at least seeing the first two, God and hell type wasn't really a thing. It was never associated with Catholicism or Christianity or anything like that. The idea of hell or a devil doesn't really exist, I don't think, in Hellraiser canon, does it?
I don't think so, and definitely not in this movie. They even mention that it's like another dimension, and I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think hell is kind of a generic term here for just place you don't want to be. Like it's just a bad
Yeah.
place. It's just a hell dimension. It's a bad place
Right.
dimension. It's not
Sure.
the proper name hell
Right. Yeah.
as
Not.
Christianity
Yeah.
knows it. It's just a really not cool place.
Well, and I suppose as before we really get into it, like that's where I'm coming from with these movies. I am not of the not cut from the Hellraiser cloth. I'm not here to defend. I don't have any skin in the game. Whenever I view it, I'm reviewing it from just horror movie genre. I don't have any nostalgia or anything for it. If
Right.
anything, I'm not really interested. I just want to see a good movie, and so that's the angle I'm coming from. And so a lot of the things, if I'm supposed to know A, B, or C, and I don't, well, it's because I'm a bit of a rube when it comes to Hellraiser
Hellraiser,
lore.
sure.
So
Yeah, I as far as Hellraiser is concerned, I'm just a big fan of one and two, kind of watching them together as one film or as like the story is supposed to be told. And I really could care less about every sequel after that. So as far as this movie is concerned, same for me. It was just a one shot called Hellraiser. Um, so I really didn't have any, um, any expectations, or I didn't also care that it strayed from the lore that I knew because it's its own thing.
Right. So do we want to get right into it?
Yeah, here we go.
With yeah, you gonna read the synopsis, or we would do that breakdown?
Oh, yeah, yeah, we can do that now.
Sure.
Hellraiser. A take on Clive Barker's 1987 horror classic where a young woman struggling with addiction comes into possession of an ancient puzzle box, unaware that its purpose is to summon the Cenobites. Directed by David Bruckner. Written by Ben Collins and Luke Piotrowski.
Mm-hmm.
David Bruckner. I feel like who's this guy? Oh, okay.
This is the Night House.
Oh my God.
So, so because and that's why our interest was kind of a little bit more piqued when we knew that this was going to be coming out, because the Night House is
Oh
the only
man.
reason it wasn't the best movie of last year is because Malignant was also released last year. The
Right,
Night
right.
House was perfect, and his hand is present in a lot of it. And so I was looking for that when I was watching Hellraiser, and I guess you could see it in some of the visuals or the machinations of the house or the mansion by the end of it, and how they're, you know, how things are framed or how they look. But man, I feel like to he did the best with what he was given, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he wasn't involved in the writing process, so I mean,
Right.
you do with what you will. I don't want to go too farther down this rabbit hole without spoiling. So let's.
Right.
Yeah. So I will say that I really, really enjoyed the anytime the scenery broke away into the other dimension, and
Mm-hmm.
those he the upside down the use of the upside down camera was good. It was good.
Oh, sure.
Like
Okay.
it wasn't too annoying. It wasn't annoying. Like he did it a lot. Like he didn't do it
Was
like.
it a lot? Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a lot. He didn't do it too much, but it was a lot.
I didn't notice. So, your overall impression?
Overall, Hellraiser was terrible. This movie is boring, and not boring in the way the slow burn is boring, where you're still trying to figure things out through the movie, where you're actually interested in the characters, and you can't wait to see what happens next. This movie is boring in the way that every second you're watching it, you wish you were not watching it. Hellraiser 3, the remake, has a few redeeming qualities. Those would be its excellent use of prosthetics and practical effects. Um, is that two? Because I said a few, right? That's the only two things that it has redeeming. The story is terrible. The ending is terrible. The story makes no sense. The characters are all terrible. All the actors are bad. There is nothing good about this movie. I give it a 3 out of 10 for practical effects and gore alone.
Holy shit. I think that you went harder than I'm going to go on it. But I agree 100%. I think that this movie uh, doesn't need to exist. I don't think that this is a way to envision to create a new bloodline for sequels to follow, which I think people want to have happen. Um, it's not as this is, I guess, a similar feel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre's reimagining. It's like it's an old thing that no one really cared about anymore, and they're gonna try to give a reimagining of it, which they even say a take on Clive Barker's classic.
Yeah.
But this falls short in the same way, except Texas Chainsaw at least had some entertainment value with the absurdity of the kills and things like that. There was obviously
Yeah.
huge issues with it, but it was fun to watch. This
Yeah.
was not fun to watch. The decision making, the acting, the characters. The protagonist is not a likable character. The protagonist is annoying. You do not root for her. You want to see her fail.
Yes.
The decisions that she does and everyone else does don't really make any sense. This film is only like it gets to the Cenobites quicker, but they're not threatening, they're not intimidating, they're not scary. You're kind of interested to see what they look like, but at that point you're like, okay, yeah, I saw it. What cool shit are they gonna do? Nothing? Oh, all right. That's I guess that's something. That's something way to do it. It's just not it doesn't hit any of the marks that you would want to hit to be impacted by the film in any kind of way, shape, or form. Nothing is going at coloring. It's just very event is happening after event, and you're just watching it progress. And it's frustrating to see people praise like Jamie Clayton. Pinhead is awesome. She did amazing. Like she's in makeup. She's doing fuck all. She's just there, and her voice is modded out, so it doesn't even sound like she sounds like. It's just she's saying a couple lines, which are few, and she's just in the background, just standing there menacingly. Like she's not acting. She's just in a costume. It could have been any fucking person. She's not adding anything to it. And people are like just praising her so immensely, like she's amazing. Bradley's so proud of her. Like I don't get it. So I think that this movie is strictly for people that are already on Hellraiser's dick and love Hellraiser and will eat it up no matter what. And if that's your thing, cool, great. I'm happy. It is not for me. I don't think this is for a general audience. I think it's very doesn't. There's nothing exciting about this to get engaged in. The story is really thin, and there's not really a lot of kills or anything else to engage like a casual horror fan that just wants to see some cool, gross shit happen. That doesn't exist really. So there's really no point. It's a horror film in the fact that it's a horror existing IP, but there's not a whole lot that happens that really hits those notes. So it's a huge letdown. Not that I was really expecting much. I think I gave it a 4. I gave it a 4 because some of the visuals are fine enough and the effects are good enough. But yeah, 3 is completely valid. I gave it a 4. You gave it a 3. We're in the same ballpark. It's I would not recommend this movie. If you're a diehard fan, sure.
Yeah. If you're diehard for Hellraiser, go for it. If you're not, just stay away. Just pass. It is a waste of your time.
Yeah.
This
It's just over 2 hours. It's
yeah. I think I gave Death Valley a higher score than this guy's. So
you very well may have.
If you're like, oh, I'm gonna spend 2 hours on Hellraiser, no, dude, just spend like 87 minutes on Death Valley, because that movie was fucking better.
Yeah.
It was better.
And I mean, it's hard to say as far as like a story. There's a story there, and you kind of can follow along. Here, the story is just so stupid. So let's just get into it. Like,
yeah, here we go. This movie sucks balls. Like, so the protagonist, right? She's a recovering drug addict who lives with her brother, who's gay. So there's the brother's boyfriend, and then there's random Asian friend of group.
who has no need to even be there. She has
Yeah.
hardly any lines.
No.
I don't know why the fuck she's even in this movie.
Right. And then there's boyfriend of main protagonist who is the biggest fucking douchebag on the planet right from jump. You're like, what the hell is this girl doing with this guy? So like you haven't rejected the protagonist yet because she's not quite an asshole yet, but you're already questioning her character because of who, she's sleeping with and like apparently for 6 years, but then a few minutes later it's kind of like 6 months. Because
I think that like they're both in recovery at their AA program or whatever.
They're both in recovery, but then the text on the bottom says 6 years later, and then we get to see like her talking to her brother and stuff like that. But then they say that she's been in recovery for 6 months. But is
Yeah,
it
the 6 years later was just a Voight's timeline, and she
right?
and he didn't really exist. So there's 6 years there, and then the fact that it's 6 months that she's been sober are like two different things. They just happen to align with
Yeah,
number six, and it might be confusing to some viewer, I
yeah.
guess.
Well, I think it showed her hooking up with the guy before it ended. Before it said 6 years later.
Nah, no way.
Okay, maybe not.
No, 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 no.
Maybe
There's no way.
not. Once again,
Uh,
this movie was really bad, so I was kind of all over the place.
but yeah, I mean, it's just so it starts weird, and so that she's in recovery, and she doesn't seem to be working or anything, and like her brother's obviously annoyed and frustrated and
Yeah,
wants the best of her, but he sees this other guy who's a douche, and he's like, "What are you doing? Like, this is this really the best relationship to meet someone in AA? Like, shouldn't you be focused on recovery?" He's got valid questions, and
yeah.
she's just a sack of shit. This guy talks her into breaking into someone's container to steal whatever is in there, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm down."
Right,
Okay.
because she
Uh,
needs money to pay rent. Because he's like, I'm not
well,
covering you anymore.
yeah, but here's the other thing too. She's got plenty of money for fucking gas. At $5 a gallon, she's driving all over Tarnation to track down whatever. And I'm like, where are you getting the money for gas? How do you even have a car? You can't pay rent, but you got a car and gas. And aren't they in the city? Why do you have a car?
Yeah, and car insurance
Uh,
and
so yeah, so Riley's a piece of shit. So they come across the box, and they find the lamentation. That's how to say it, right? Whatever.
lamentation,
Lamentation.
lamentation,
Laminate. Whatever the fuck.
lamination.
3M. Yeah, the lamentation box configuration,
Yeah,
and she's like fingering it and shit. And this is where like it goes crazy. Like, so her brother wants to kick her out because they have a
right.
fight, and so she gets the box, and so she just kind of somehow solves the puzzle, this configuration
Yeah.
of the puzzle, and the knife comes out, and she doesn't get hit by it magically because she's holding her
She's
hands in
holding
such a
it
way
like
that she's like,
this, and it comes
yeah,
right out in the middle.
she get real lucky.
Yeah,
And then they're like, what the fuck? The priest shows up, but nothing really happens. She just starts to have visions. But then her brother comes by because she's drugged out because she's upset about her kicking him,
yeah, yeah,
him
yeah.
kicking her out. And then the brother gets hit, and then the brother is just fucking, yep, you're
Gone.
killed, you're dead, you
Swoop.
just disappear.
Yeah,
And she's like scrambling around, like, but she doesn't seem that upset. She's like, where is he? But it just doesn't seem genuine, like
yeah.
how she should feel, her reaction to it. Uh,
I think she.
what the fuck?
I think she very much feels like if she solves the puzzle, she'll get him back. Like she never accepts
Yeah,
that
she'll
he's
figure it
gone.
out.
Yeah, she never accepts that he's gone. Right?
But that doesn't really make sense either.
Doesn't make sense because she has no idea what this fucking box is at this point. She does find out, but she shouldn't know this early. She doesn't know this early.
All right. So like from that point on, the way that it goes, and the unfolding, they magically track down where that container came from and the box came from. They find Voight's
Yeah.
lawyer, who's now in another home, and they go there and they confront her. And this fucking woman grabs the box and is wrestling over the box. She knows what the box does.
Yeah.
She knows what's going to happen, but she's like, "Oh, I'm wrestling on it." And magically, this puzzle box that's supposed to be very difficult to configure and delicate movements of your fingers and hands unhinges
Yeah.
to the next configuration and stabs this lady.
Yeah. And then she's gone.
It's just like, what?
Out of the
Yeah.
yeah.
And then
So
she's gone.
they
And
find
then it just gets
yeah.
to the end, to the mansion after that, right?
Well, yeah, they find out that they're both gone because somebody checked up on them or whatever. But
Yeah.
she goes to the mansion with alone. Yeah, I think she goes to the mansion alone, and
Yeah,
then
because the boyfriend comes up with a reason to come back because he's apparently was the one that caused all this to happen,
right,
unbeknownst to us. She gets there alone, and
the
and then they show up
boyfriend,
with
her brother's boyfriend, and the Asian girl come in,
Yeah,
show up together at the same time, like at the perfect moment, right?
he brought them.
For
Yeah,
the
right,
special
for the
for
story.
the extra people to show up instead of just randomly. Um,
Right. So big twist and spoiler is that Voight hired Trevor, the
to,
boyfriend,
to
to find a victim to
right,
continue the configuration so that they could get to the final configuration, which would then give you the audience with God, where
right,
they would grant a wish of whatever of
right,
the 6 or 7 iterations
yeah.
offer. Uh,
So
so on paper, like that jives in a sense, but not 100%. And it's like the cube just becomes its thing where it's like the movie's about that
right,
and not the other stuff. Like that's the vehicle that is propelling the narrative,
yeah,
and it's the way that people come in contact with it is just so flimsy and happenstance.
yeah.
Like it's forcing it to occur uh, to get to exposition or to just propel the story, and it doesn't really have any intrinsically good or redeeming or interesting qualities.
Well,
It's just okay.
how about this the most ridiculous part of the plot that we left out is that she does get cut, but the Cenobites aren't going to come for her. The Cenobites are going to keep letting her choose someone else. So and
Right.
of course, her whole crew had to show up so that other people could die, right? So like her brother's boyfriend dies, or the Asian girl dies, or whatever.
He lives by the end.
Does he
Doesn't he live by
survive?
the end?
I don't even know. I don't
I
even
think
know.
so. He
Yeah.
gets all cut up. Like, and she comes up with like
Oh, she
they
comes up with this
they
way. She
one of
goes,
the chatterer gets
yeah.
killed.
She goes,
The Cenobites, who are like should be these otherworldly thing, like
yeah.
it just
She
gets killed because it got cooked by it.
she stabs the Cenobite with the knife blade that comes out of the thing, and then the Cenobite just explodes. And
Yeah, he
that
gets pulled with the chains and he gets exploded.
that counts as the victim
Yes.
for that
Yep.
configuration. And you're like, what?
Like, isn't this a
This is
soulless entity that doesn't
this
like?
this is retarded.
It makes no sense. And like, I'm sorry, but you can't just use the existing characters or make new Cenobites. You can't use the idea of a Cenobite, the idea of the Hell Priest, and the idea of the box. And it's like you have all those elements, but just because you're throwing them into a movie and you're connecting dots very casually, it doesn't mean that that's a movie that anyone wants to see or is worth watching. I don't think there's anything here. This might be the best of all the sequels. I haven't seen them. I only saw 1 and 2, but everyone says people say a lot of things. People say this is maybe better than the original. Okay, I don't really care. It's not to me. But
It's definitely
even
not.
if it's the best, it's the better sequel it's the best sequel that's ever been made. Okay, that's fine. It's a low bar to begin with, and this is still not good. So what you're saying then is, in general, Hellraiser is really a cesspool of shitty movies
Right.
that some people are into, but regular casual viewers probably have no interest in. So please just stop making them.
Yeah, it's like
You're just
over
cluttering things up.
it's like over here we've got like Jason and Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger, and over
Right.
here we've got you know Leatherface and the Cenobites and a bunch of shit
Right.
that nobody should really care about because all these movies are really bad. They're just not well done. Like I was never a
No, I
Texas
mean,
fan, and like Hellraiser for me was only ever 1 and 2. Um,
right.
this movie was, whoa, whoa, was it bad? Like I said,
It just
the
wasn't.
the kills were cool, the gore was cool. Um, you
Yeah,
know,
but it was very infrequent. There wasn't a ton.
that's true. That's
I
true.
don't think there was a ton.
That's true. I
Well, and it's like it's just weird. So it's just I don't know. We've talked about before, like what could have been, as
yeah,
far as movies. I had a very strong opinion with Pearl, for better or worse. But you know, maybe if this had, I just feel like if there was a stronger story, like
yeah,
clearly you have a director that's very capable,
right.
And so there just wasn't a lot here for him to work with, I don't think. I think this is a very lowbrow type IP, and so I think that he really just kind of like took it easy, and obviously had a script, and he was forced to follow through with what was already presented. And I think he just tried to have fun
Yeah.
and make it decent enough. And if he made it better than the sequels, then he did a good job. Like in general, if it's better than all the other sequels, then he won. It's it's still just Hellraiser, and it's still bargain bin horror fodder.
Yeah. Yeah, I just, as now we're talking about it, I just remembered that I did actually see Hellraiser 3, and that movie's terrible too. And I would probably say that it is better than this remake. So you're, so I don't think this remake is better than the sequels. It's not a good movie. Um,
Yeah, just like in general,
yeah,
from if you're just saying movies with no expectation going in, just looking face value of what's in front of me, it's not an engaging movie.
yeah. I think
There's some cool things it does, but that's it.
I think if Bruckner actually did play to the lowbrow audience, like you mentioned, I think it would have been better. Almost along the lines of Texas, where it just would have been, you
Right.
know, make it a little more campy, make it a gore fest, and you give the
It takes itself
casual.
so seriously.
Yeah,
That's the
it
other
is
thing. You're right.
so
It's
serious,
very serious.
so serious. Yeah,
Like this is a tragic thing that's occurring, and like, oh, and there's tragedy at the end. She chooses to not pick a prize by the end of the movie. She's awarded whatever she wants from the
uh,
all the configurations. She chooses nothing, and to them that means you choose the first configuration, the lamenting configuration,
lament.
and you
Yeah,
will forever live with the sadness of never seeing your loved ones again, and the people that have died from your actions. You'll
yeah,
live with that. And it's like, yeah, right. Like all the other
yeah,
ones, they're all tricks. It's a fucking genie lamp. You're gonna do
yeah,
something that I actually don't want, just like the first guy did
yeah.
when he wanted pleasure, and you fucking gave him pain because you're weird S&M people, and that's obviously what that
That's
meant.
what.
And
Yeah, and then
aren't I silly? Gotcha.
and then he
And it's
has.
like, and that thing is not even that cool. You
Yeah,
see it for a second. You see like the nerve going on a
yeah.
wheel, but it's like this doesn't make sense. It's through his spine. What? And it's just always moving, so he can't ever get used to the pain. I mean, all right, but like it's not really that graphic. Or
Yeah.
and then the scene of it falling up out of his body took forever. I'm like, it's still falling out. It just felt like it was like a fucking joke where they're holding a bag upside down. You see like a million things fall out. It's like a clown
Yeah.
car type
Yeah,
gag
yeah,
where
yeah.
there's way more things that are falling out of the bag that can fit in the bag, and it's all coming out of his chest. It was clanging on the floor. It was
Right. And that
hilariously bad unintentionally.
right. So he gets his second choice too, right? And he gets power.
Yeah.
He gets power, and they turn him into a Cenobite.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know, man. Like,
And
you
yeah,
know,
and it ends with him doing the Cenobite thing, cruciformed and
yeah, yeah,
emptiness with Leviathan supposedly in the background.
yeah.
Okay. So it's like I guess he'll
So
be in the reboot too.
please,
Cool.
God, don't sequel this.
I
Please.
mean, it could be done, but like, like but maybe it should be like I don't know, over the top in the way that Texas Chainsaw was. You just referenced it, like how
Yeah.
it could have if they would have went that route where like you go to the lowbrow and you just like make it like people love Terrifier too. We haven't gotten a chance to see it because it's not in any theaters near us.
Yeah.
But people love how in your face, overtly graphic and raw it is. Maybe a Hellraiser that took that angle would be interesting because you could have a little bit of the lore, but then it would just be like gratuitous violence and kind of exciting because of that. And you'd be like, oh my God, I don't want to come near this thing because gross shit's going to happen. I don't know.
Yeah.
And they come to the mansion and they just stand out there waiting. And she's like,
Oh
I'm
right.
gonna lure just one of them in. They walk real slow. It's like you're playing a fucking Nintendo game or something.
Yeah.
You know that you just get close, the enemy will start to follow you, and then you can
It's just
stagger so that the one is
yeah,
far away, the other one you lock the doors. So childish.
yeah. And the bars that he made. Hey, mate,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
Cenobites couldn't come inside. Get the fuck out of here! Come on. These things show up inside buildings. They pull walls apart through dimensional
I
rifts
know.
and portals. They can't get
Yeah,
into the
and this guy's got
mansion
it all figured
because
out.
of the
Yeah,
gates. Come on. All
yeah.
right, all right. Our time is up. I gave it a 3.
I give it a 4.
For episode 11 of the podcast for the recently deceased, I am Nate Roberts.
I'm Rodney Godek. Take care.
We'll see you in about 5 minutes.